Y'all able to hear me? Skylar? Yeah. Okay. Great. Um, just waiting to see if Mo's gonna pop on here. I'll start right at one though. All right. Um, so chapter two, supposed to take a test tomorrow for some. Well, Mo will. Um, Mackenzie, you'll do it when you come back, and Skylar, hopefully on Wednesday you'll be ready for that. So we'll do a review over that. I believe this is a real good one as far as review. So Mackenzie, I'm gonna ask you to go first. I'm just gonna pick which one. I'm just gonna pick for y'all. So we'll start with the 100 right here. So, what is the 1990 Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act? You can look on your notes, look on your worksheets to answer. I'll give you about a minute or two to answer. Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1990. McKinsey. What does that consist of? What does it allow for the pharmacist to do? Limited drug use. No, not so much limited drug use. It's dealing with what the pharmacist is able to do with patients, somewhat evaluate, but for the most part, the it requires the pharmacist to consult. Yes, consult consult the patient. That separates us. Of course, more education separates a tech from a pharmacist, but um, for the most part, it allows for the pharmacist to consult. Required all Medicaid patients receiving a new prescription to be counseled on that drug. Also requires a drug utilization evaluation, which is a DUE. Become familiar with that abbreviation, drug utilization evaluation, which probably what you were getting at on limited drug use was to keep from drug interactions, keep the patient from taking two drugs that work the same, stuff like that. So the DUE is to make sure there were no interactions with other drugs and the patient was safe taking all medications. So that's what the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, otherwise known as OBRA 90. OBRA 90. All right, let's go back here. Skylar, I'm going to go ahead and go right here. Pharmacy laws. What did the 1951 Durham-Humphrey Amendment consist of? Kind of touched on that this morning. 1951 Durham-Humphrey Amendment. If you Added more instructions for drug companies and require labeling caution. That and was it to separate the two drugs, OTC, legit drugs? Let's see. Zach added more instructions for drug companies and required a physician's order and supervision. It also made initial distinction between legend drugs. Legend drugs are prescription drugs and OTC medications, which you can get over the counter, which hence OTC. Um, and then again, you got the behind the counter drugs as well. So, but that's of course, a different act concerning the Combat Methamphetamine Act. All right, good job. All right, Mackenzie, let's do pharmacy law here. What did the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act consist of? 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. Give you about a minute or two. Create mislabeling or misplacing. Let's look at it. It was the first law that stopped the sale of inaccurately labeled drugs. Great job. Misbranding, yes. That is correct. Let's see what page that was on. Yeah, page 23 shows there. Okay. Good job. All right, Skylar, we'll do controlled substances. Let's see where we're at there. The 5 levels of controlled substances. So, what are the 5 Roman numerals that we use for controlled substances? And what is the most, which one's the most addictive? Which one's the least addictive? One is the most addictive, and 5 is the least addictive. Correct. So you have controls, for sure, control 1. And then you have control 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. And 1 is the most, and then not, we cannot use, those are not okay for medical use. Controls 2 through 5 are good for medical use. Good job. Here we go. All right, Mackenzie, FDA, DEA, NOSHA. Physicians have to have this number to prescribe controlled substances. What is that number? What do we have to verify that's valid or invalid? Give you about a minute or two. Product number? No, not the product number. This is the what the physician has to have. What do we verify to make sure that the physician number is valid? What do we verify? The three letters abbreviated, dealing with controls. See if I can find the page. I guess another hint would be that you have to have letters A, B, F, M, or X for the first letter of that specific number that we're looking for. It's actually called the DEA number, Drug Enforcement Administration number. So the physicians have to have that. Okay. All right. Skylar, we'll do FDA, DEA, and OSHA. Sheet that is kept with hazardous material to ensure the safety of employees. So it's dealing with OSHA, and we have to go over this at least annually. It has the word sheet in it, and it's dealing with cleaning chemicals, hazardous chemicals. Safety data sheets is correct. And this is just dealing with OSHA, dealing with cleaning hazardous material, chemicals. Good job. All right, McKinsey's controlled substances. The form to order controlled medications. What DEA form do we need to order controlled medication? What number is that? What form number is that? What DEA form is that? Specific number. Should be able to find it on page 39 in your book. Give you just a minute. Any guesses, Mackenzie? Form 225, close, but nope, not that one. Skylar, you got a guess? 222 is correct. DEA Form 222. You see that on page 39? You see that sample DEA Form 222 there? And then it also gives you other numbers here on pages 38 and 39. So become familiar with those uh, different, different ones. And you do have it in your worksheets as well. So you have your worksheets. You can look over those to answer. All right, Skylar, Pharmacy Laws 200. 1996 Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. What did HIPAA, what is that dealing with? Patient confidentiality is correct. Created the Protected Health Information. Um, Become familiar with that abbreviation PHI, which is Protected Health Information. Established to protect the patient's private information, any that would cause the patient to be identified. Again, we have, our best friend's boyfriend or girlfriend, might pick up an HIV man or whatever. We still can't tell our best friend because that is going against HIPAA, and we can be fined and fired for it. So that all is patient protected health information. So just make sure that you're not sharing any kind of any kind of information in regards to that, because it could give you a high fine and make you lose your job. So, in same goes with hospital setting. You don't want to talk about things out loud where there's other patients or other patients' family members around or whatever. You always want to go into office or speak silently, not so loud. All right. Pharmacy Laws 200 for McKinsey, 1970 Controlled Substance Act. 1970 Controlled Substance Act. And that is on page, I believe, 24. Yeah, page 24. All right, McKinsey. What does that consist of? 1970 Controlled Substance Act. Scheduled drugs. Correct. DEA was formed to, well, it formed the DEA. The DEA was formed to enforce laws concerning controlled substances and their distribution. It also created the scheduled drug list, non-controlled, and the C2 through 5 controlled medications. Good job on that. Schuyler 200 here, Pharmacy Laws. The 1914 Harrison Narcotics Act, finally on page 23. Yeah, page 23 there. Which is highly addictive substances that made certain drugs illegal. Correct. It stopped people from purchasing opium without a prescription and made it harder to obtain opium for non-medical purposes. So, dealing with Harrison narcotics, mostly dealing with the opium, because back then, that was the main drug of choice. This was back in Western days, Wyatt Earp days. Keep on referring back to Tombstone, where Wyatt Earp's then girlfriend was addicted to that laudanum. Eventually, died from it through overdose, I believe. All right, great, great job. All right, pharmacy law, McKinsey, 300, 1938 Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, page 23 again. "1938 Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act." Give you about a minute or two. To encourage people to distribute the drugs to rare diseases. No, that was actually the Orphan Drug Act. This one was enacted after realizing that the Pure Food and Drug Act prior, which was the 1906, was not worded strict enough and did not include cosmetics. It stopped misbranding and we required warning labels. So it kind of enhanced the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act, and also it added cosmetics to making sure that it is okay for patient use. All right. Skylar 300 Pharmacy Law 1962 Kefauver Harris Amendments. And then on page 24. Used to ensure safety of drugs in U.S. market. Gave FDA authority over certain drugs. Let's look at it here. This act allowed the FDA to approve drugs before they could be commercially used. So just about, yes, authority over certain drugs. Actually, their authority over all drugs that are to be approved in the United States. Um, Canada has their own. Mexico is less stringent, I guess, because a lot of their antibiotics are over the counter, and that's why a lot of people like to go to Mexico and get some of their drugs, because a lot of the prescription drugs are over the counter over there, so which is not regulated over the FDA. So that's why people get in trouble if they bring certain medications from Mexico. Not so much Canada because they have their own type of FDA type of regulations. But yeah, FDA is strictly over what's consumed in the United States. Good job. 300 Pharmacy Law from McKinsey. 2000 Combat Methamphetamine Epidemic Act. What have I said about that one? Because this is the reason why we have behind the counter medications now. 2005 Combat Methamphetamine Epidemic. And that's on page 26 for OTC. So we're looking at what specific ingredient are we looking at or medication when we are talking about the combat methamphetamine epidemic? Pseudoephedrine, yes, correct. So that's on page 28 in your book. Good job. So this puts limitations on the amount of pseudoephedrine, or PSE in short, purchase. Again, you can only purchase 3.6 grams per day or 9 grams per week. Day per week, yeah. So that's per month. I think 9 grams per week is the limit. But good job. That's dealing with the stopping of methamphetamines. Skylar 300 controlled substances. Misuse of drugs intended for medical purposes. What is the misuse of drugs intended for medical purposes? Misuse of drugs intended for medical purposes. Trying to figure out what it's asking. Substance abuse. Let's look at it because I'm kind of drug diversion. Misuse of drugs intended for medical purposes. Oh, okay. So this is when, say, if we're supposed to waste controlled medications, or pretty much all medications, but specifically controlled medications, and we have to waste them with a witness. Um, Sometimes we have nurses that pull out that excess prior to wasting, and then refilling it with like a just a like a saline or something, so they could keep that. They keep the control that they pulled, and they'll have the witness come in, and they'll witness them, wasting the rest of the med, which is the saline, which is not the med. So that's a form of drug diversion. Um, this same nurse that would do this got caught because sometimes the waste comes down to the pharmacy, and it is checked through, I guess it's by a pH scale, and certain controlled drugs have this a certain pH on it. So when they found out discrepancies, they went and drug tested the nurse, and sure enough, she was positive for whatever. I believe it was either morphine or Dilaudid, hydromorphone, whatever drug that she was injecting herself with. But that is a form of drug diversion there. So that's what that was talking about. McKenzie 300, FDA, DEA, OSHA. Reports recalls of drugs and food. Which organization reports recalls of drugs and food? Kind of looked at that today with the Orange Book. What organization was over that Orange Book? FDA is correct. The Food Drug Administration reports recalls of drugs and alcohol and food. There are three types of recalls. Number one is the most serious, where it could lead to death. Number two is less serious, but may put you in the hospital. And number three um, is the least serious, which is a scheduled recall number three. And, you know, certain recalls are maybe the color of the tablet is wrong, or the number on the tablet is wrong or something. And these are just things that, won't harm you or anything, but they are the least serious. Okay, Skylar 400, FDA, DEA, OSHA. You may have to call what when the 7 days are up to receive the written prescription. So basically, people on hospice, yes, provider or physician, prescriber. You may have to call the provider or the physician or the prescriber. A lot of people on hospice say they, got either gotten a wreck, or they've had cancer or whatever, and they're about to go pass on. A lot of the times people on hospice, they give them or prescribe morphine, so that they can pass in peace. And so they have to get this medication from somewhere, and some retail pharmacies do have these medications. So the prescriber, so say it's an emergency base, so the prescriber will call, first, to see if we can dispense it, and if we can, we'll dispense it for emergency basis or for person who are in hospice. But the prescriber has to send the Schedule 2 prescription for that patient within the 7 days. So that's what that's talking about. All right. Oh, we answered that. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Well, that shows DEA, but we have to call the prescriber first because they're the ones that have to send us the prescription. All right, McKinsey 400. Oral orders can only take the place of written controlled substance during what? Kind of ambiguous. It's a written controlled substance. Let me go ahead and open that one. Okay, that's what we're talking about, emergency situations. So a person's on a deathbed, whatnot. That's when oral orders are okay. And of course, you have to receive the controlled C2 prescription within those 7 days. So that's what the other one was about. Mackenzie, let me go ahead and have you answer this one. Pharmacy laws. 2010, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. 2010 Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. A lot of people call it Obamacare. To afford the health care it allowed for people to avoid, yes. So make preventive care more affordable and required insurance companies to lower their standards to accept more patients, even with, if they had a disease prior, um, they're still able to get insurance. So that's what all that is about. And just looking for the page on that. On page 29 there. Page 29. All right, Schuyler 400 Pharmacy Laws, 1972 Drug Listing Act. The NDC kind of gives it away, I would say. 1972 Drug Listing Act on page 24. FDA given 10-digit number used to identify, yes, also known as EDC or the National Drug Code. This act made sure every drug has a 10-digit number that is divided into three segments, which represented the manufacturer. Again, the first five numbers are a manufacturer, the middle numbers are the product, and the last two numbers are the package size. So the first five numbers manufacturer, the next sometimes it's 3 to 4 numbers on that for product, and it's usually 2 numbers for the package size. And it's otherwise known as the National Drug Code. And we use this to make sure we're pulling the correct medication. We match the medication bottle number with the number on the prescription label, and also along with matching the name of the medication as well as the strength of the medication. Good job. All right, 400 for McKinsey, 1970 Poison and Prevention Packaging Act. What did this help, or what is this act talking about? Poison and Prevention Packaging Act. That's on page 24. And there's certain drugs that we do not allow. No, not dealing with scheduled drugs. Um, there's certain drugs that we don't allow childproof um, lids, like your nitroglycerin. Kind of gave you the answer. What is that consisting of? That is the PPPA, yes. And this act is made sure that all medications had childproof caps and packaging for OTC and legend drugs. So, and if you know that, let's see, standards. The standard specifies that medication should not be able to be opened by at least 80% of children and under the age of 5, and at least 90% of adults should be able to open their medication within 5 minutes. That's the standard. Um, so that's why we have Poison Prevention Packaging Act. All right, Skylar, 500, Pharmacy Law, 1983 Orphan Act or Orphan Drug Act. Which again, it's on page 24. Drugs for rare diseases is correct. This act encouraged drug companies to develop drugs for rare diseases by providing research assistance, grants, and cost incentives to the manufacturers. So, this act also, the act also covered diseases that affected more than 200,000 people if it could be proved um, that the cost of developing and testing a drug could not be recovered by the eventual sales. All right, great job. McKinsey 500 Pharmacy Law, 1987 Prescription Drug Marketing Act. Page 25. Help prevent counterfeit drugs. Any guesses? Also, a prediction to limit the chain of supply. Yeah. This act helps solidify the legal supply channel for prescription drugs from manufacturers to authorized wholesalers. It also helps prevent counterfeit drugs and ingredients in the supply chain. So, like I said, FDA is over anything that's going to be consumed in the United States and making sure, that hospitals and pharmacies are getting the correct medications from um, specific manufacturers that are approved by the FDA. Great job. Schuyler 500 Pharmacy Law. 2013, I believe the Drug Quality and Security Act. Page 30. Another 2013 Drug Quality and Security Act. Gave FDA oversight of pharmaceutical compounding and greater ability to track drugs. Great, good job. Made up of two different acts. Compounding Quality Act. Compounding manufacturer would voluntarily report to the FDA and would be able to sell in bulk to hospitals. And also Drug Supply Chain Security Act required the FDA to create a reporting and tracking system to ensure the purity of the drugs, making sure that they weren't any counterfeit or substandard products. I believe like there was a contamination in one of the facilities that would create bulk um, products for hospitals, and it went out. So now they are having reports done by these compounding facilities. Good job. Kinsey 500 Controlled Substance. Time period of the dispensing of a partial C2 drug. So if we gave a patient just a partial fill, how many hours do we have to refill that or to give them the remainder of that partial fill? How many hours or how many days? Take either or. 2 hours? Nope, not 2 hours. More. We need more time than that because I mean we're filling it within the same day. We cannot fill it within the same day if we do a partial fill. So you don't get a refill. Control 2 drugs, we don't get refills. But say the pharmacy didn't have the full amount. So say the prescription called for 60, we only had 30. So we would fill the 30 and we would have to have the other 30 within 3 days or 72 hours. So 72 hours we have to have. Yeah, within 3 days. All right, Skylar, FDA, DEA. Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act replaced. What is that asking? I'm thinking the most updated Food and Drug Administration Act, I guess. Trying to look if there's any. I'm going to assume that's talking about the 1997 Food and Drug Administration Modernization Act. Let's see. Okay, so the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 was replaced by the, what year was it? 1938 Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And I think it was further enhanced by the 1997 Food and Drug Administration Modernization Act. Let's read up on that real quick. 1997. Not showing. Let's look at that real quick. 1997. What that consisted of. So the FDA Modernization Act of 1997, signed into law November 21st, 1997, modifies the mission of the FDA to include a goal of speeding research, innovation, and access to care. The legislation allows for fast track review for most important drugs. So, I guess that was the law that gave Trump an okay to get that vaccine out. Remember in 2020 because of the COVID. Uh, so this sped up that process. All right. Does anybody know the Quizlet for that Mo created? So we can look over that one. Anybody? Anybody know the Quizlet for chapter 16? I don't think we have it. But I'm talking about chapter 16 that Mo created. So we can go over that one. The one over the stems for chapter 16. Let's see. Let's see. All right, yeah. Let's uh, let's do a quick learn real quick on this. Do a quick, so we know some of it, and not do the flashcards, just multiple choice. All right. This is for anybody. So whoever wants to answer first, or what's the 5 alpha reductase inhibitors? What is the stem for that? Steroid. ACE inhibitors. Anybody? Look at number 2. Good job. ARBs. What stem do we look for that? 2. Sartan. Good job. Benzodiazepines. Anybody? Benzodiazepines. These are anti-anxiety control force. 2. Should be 2. Alprazolam, lorazepam. Beta blockers. Beta blockers. Beta blockers. These are heart meds. 1. Correct. Bisphosphonates. Bisphosphonates. It's not 2. This is for osteoporosis. Cannot lay down after 30. Cannot lay down 30 minutes from taking. creates bad acid reflux or affects the esophagus. Brand name is Fosamax. Any other guesses? It is dronate. Bisphosphonates is dronate. So this is supposed to be bronchodilator. So we use this if we got asthma. Number one, number one, bronchodilator. We use it if we got asthma. Albuterol. All right. Now two. Cholinesterase inhibitors. Cholinesterase inhibitors. Three or four. So thiazide is actually a thiazide diuretic. That's diuretic. So let's look at number three. Oops. It is stigmine, actually. Stigmine. Neostigmine. Um, can't think of another one here, but neostigmine. There we go. Dpp4 inhibitor. Is that for migraines? Or what is that for? Dpp4 inhibitor. Glycine or number two? No. Let's look at it. Let's see here. Dpp4 inhibitors. I was looking at chapter 16. So it's let's look at it. One or two. It's actually gliptin. Sitagliptin. So these are diabetic medications. So become familiar with those. It's on page 359 in the book. All right. So continue. Dopamine receptor agonist. This kind of gives it away. Dopamine gives it away. It's not two. It's got kind of the word in it. Dopamine. Four, yes. Dopamine. It's correct. Fluoroquinolone antibiotic. Fluoroquinolone antibiotic. You say three, McKenzie. Is correct. Levofloxacin. Histamine 2 antagonist. Histamine 2 antagonist. So, three. Stigmine. I don't think it's stigmine. I think this was dealing with the ulcers. Yeah, this one's dealing with ulcers. Um, Cimetidine, loratadine, stuff like that. HMG CoA reductase inhibitors. Skylar says one. Nope, those are not NSAIDs. And it's not the DOPA. Mackenzie, you say four. Statins is correct. Statin. Loop diuretic. Which one's a loop diuretic? There you go, Mackenzie. Semi. Cholinesterase inhibitors. So let's try this one. What was this one? Steroid. Stigmine. So cholinesterase inhibitors. Stigmine. See if it'll read for me. Dpp4 inhibitor for diabetes. Page 359. 299. Let's look at it. Gliptin. I know there's some diabetes medications that are, but they start with GLY, GLI. So let me see here. Dpp4 inhibitors are like sitagliptin, saxagliptin. Both have gliptin stems, but those are also used for diabetes. So again, cholinesterase inhibitor. What was that one? Two. Great. We learned. And this one was which one? Sitagliptin. Okay, yeah, I guess you answered it there. All right. Um, y'all have any questions? It was two, yeah. Um, so Mackenzie, you won't be here for the rest of the week. I'll get all that recorded. Again, Skylar, test on chapter 16. So go over that Quizlet. That'll help you out. It's just going to be matching. And Mackenzie, I will let you know if I'm going to set up an online test for chapter 3 and 4. And when you come back, we have to retake that test that that you want to retake. All right. I'll see some of y'all tomorrow in class. So if y'all don't have anything, that's all I have for y'all. We'll have the test in the afternoon section. So that's when I'll give out the test. Any other questions or anything? Y'all good? Sweet. All right. If y'all do have any questions, y'all can email me on Canvas or my email, or even in here, I'll be able to see it. So y'all have a good rest of the day and get your work in. Thank you.